Hello, all in the digital world. Welcome back to another episode of Spliced In Later. I hope you all have been keeping well since the last time I spoke to you last week when I talked about. What did I speak about? Andor. That's right. Whoops, hasn't really made that much of an impression on me. But yeah, hope you've all been good in the last week. As promised, this week will be 2 episodes this week to review 2 new movies that are in the cinemas, or almost in the cinemas. The movie I'm reviewing today technically isn't out yet. You may have to wait until Boxing Day, depending where you are in the world. But for all intents and purposes, these are probably the last movies that I will be reviewing this year, meaning that I have plenty of time to concoct my top 10 movies of 2022. Unless I end up watching the Matilda musical, I'm not sure. I may watch it, I just don't know if I will prioritize it enough to get it in before the deadline. We'll just have to see. But these last movies, I have either been anticipating them or obligated to see them. Luckily, I'm able to see them with plenty of time ahead of Christmas, so I don't have to go out on Boxing Day and potentially get COVID and everything else. Just trying to watch some movies. Today's review is not the one everybody's probably waiting for. That will be coming later in the week. But I guarantee you, this one will probably have a lot more enthusiasm and a lot more excitement about it. Unless things radically change, which it could. We'll have to wait and see. But our first review, the first review we're reviewing this week, of all things, a Puss in Boots movie. It is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, a sequel to Puss in Boots, starring Antonio Banderas as the voice of the lovable Puss in Boots, who is himself a character that has been spun off from the much-loved Shrek franchise. So to put it in perspective for you, because you think about the target audience here, Puss in Boots does appeal to kids, but I would think for movies like these, where you make animated sequels to movies that came out 10, 20 odd years ago, yes, the kids will see it and they'll go like, oh, yep, that's a talking cat. That's enjoyed. My brain is happy for the next hour and a half. But you will get those people who are nostalgic for those animated characters, who grew up with those animated movies, who will probably want to go and see these movies, which becomes that age-old question of whether do you age up the content to match what is essentially your target audience, or do you cast them aside for the new minds, the new generation, the new kids who will appreciate whatever? Because times also change as well. The themes, the things that are in, the things that are hip in an early 2000s movie like Shrek may not ring the same way in 2022. But it's always these animated movies, especially in recent years, which are, there's 6 or 7 year gap between films. I mean, the Minions film, 2015, Minions: The Rise of Gru, comes out 2022. But the original Despicable Me was 2010. So that means 12 years between the original Despicable Me and the Minions: Rise of Gru sequel, which is where that whole TikTok team thing came from, because everybody going to see Minions: The Rise of Gru were kids in 2010, but now they're annoying young adults. And it's the same for Puss in Boots here. Puss in Boots, the spin-off of Shrek, came out in 2011. That was 11 years ago. So 11 years later, we are getting another Puss in Boots sequel. But it is about a character who was introduced in Shrek 2, which was 2004. So that's 18 years. People who were not born yet before Shrek 2 came out are now casting high school aside and ready to embrace the world as brand new adults. So it's interesting when these movies come out, but you have to wonder who they appeal for and whether they will work. As was my opinion as this movie was coming. There was always talk of a Puss in Boots sequel. For as long as I can remember when I first saw 2011 Puss in Boots, I think the original concept was, it was called 9 Lives and 40 Thieves, and Puss was going to adopt 3 young banditos in a very Mask of Zorro, handing up the torch sort of way. And then I think that became a short film instead, or potentially a pilot for a TV series. I don't know. If there's one thing DreamWorks does, it makes TV shows out of its animated products. You can say Disney does it, and Disney's probably doing it a lot more frequently and a lot more persistently, as Disney is wont to do when they have their products. But DreamWorks started it first. But eventually, it's sort of like Minions 2. Eventually you will get it. It's just a question of when and how and why. So this year I knew there was a Puss in Boots sequel coming. And then eventually it got a title, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. And it was supposed to come out in September. And I was indifferent. I didn't care. Not to say I didn't care. I didn't get excited for it. That's for sure. It was just another movie to add to the list of things I'll probably go see because I'm invested in the franchise, in the product that Hollywood is selling to me. But then the first trailer comes out for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and I'm like, something different here. The animation itself is a unique step up from what I can see, and the way they're using their animation. Everybody seems to have adopted the paint style action animation sequences that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse originated, and are adapting it into their movies. From what I'm told, because I haven't seen The Bad Guys, apparently they did it first for DreamWorks. But it was on par here in Puss in Boots when Puss is fighting some troll. And the themes seemed pretty heavy. Something about Puss in Boots being on his last of his 9 lives, meaning his next bout with death could kill him, and then he's going on some adventure and all these other characters. It looked like your standard sort of Land of Shrek fairy tale colliding things, but I don't know. There's something about it that seemed different. It seemed unique. So I went, okay, I'm excited to see it. And then within 2 days of that, they pushed it back to December. So it once again went out of my mind. Until a couple weeks ago, when my friend came to me and is like, I don't know if you've seen these early reviews for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but people are saying that it's fucking spectacular. Like, not only is it a good animated film, it could be one of the best animated movies ever made. And I went, you're lying to me. But as a result of that, I sought out the first advanced screening I could get of Puss in Boots that wasn't labeled Family Fun Day, because those screenings had advertisements saying bring your kids and they can play in the front and draw on whiteboards and play arts and crafts, and someone in a Puss in Boots outfit will be there. And I thought, I can't get any of my friends to come with me, so I will be going alone. It's probably already dodgy enough as is. I'm not going to a Family Fun Day screening. So I did find one screening which did not say openly Family Fun Day, so I felt comfortable going to that. And then I sat down and I'm like, okay, let's see how good can this Puss in Boots movie really be. And let me tell you, everything you've heard about it, every positive thing you've heard is 100% accurate. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, a sequel to a movie that came out 11 years ago, which itself spun off from a character introduced in a movie 18 years ago, is one of the best animated movies I've ever seen. And it has rocketed up the entries for Spliced In Later's top 10 movies of 2023. Of all the movies that I could recommend to you that I reviewed over the last few months, weeks, Black Panther, Glass Onion, Bullet Train, all these different films, Puss in Boots crushes them all. Insane. I cannot recommend it enough. If you don't know what the plot could potentially be for this, I'll keep it brief, as is the custom here. I don't like to spoil things. But Puss in Boots, it picks up at a point where Puss is a very, very well-known heroic outlaw to the people wherever he lives. It's not far, far away, but it's somewhere. During a wonderful opening escapade, though, he is crushed by a bell, at which point a doctor informs him that he died. Puss goes, that's no problem, I got 9 lives, I'm fine. But then realizes through some quick math that was his 8th life, meaning he is on his last life. At first he's not particularly worried about it, but then a close encounter with a wolf bounty hunter makes him suddenly aware of his mortality, and as a result, he casts aside the identity of Puss in Boots and hides out at an old lady's house, one of those crazy old ladies that has like 50 million cats. On the back of all this is this lore that many, 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 many years ago, a actual magic wishing star, those stars that Geppetto is always singing about, you can wish upon a star and you get whatever wish you want. It had crash landed in the land somewhere, and Puss in Boots potentially had the means to find it or something. I cannot recall exactly what caused everybody to collide, but Puss in the beginning was vital to particular characters' quests to find this wish, because the The myth is that if you get to this wish, it will grant you whatever wish you want. So Puss is hiding out in the old home for cats. Amongst them is the cutest, most nicest, most kindest little dog you'll ever meet, who has no name, who is all about friendship and being grateful for what you want and all of that stuff that you know exactly where this character journey is going to go. The place is ransacked by the infamous crime family Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And that in itself pushes Puss out on his journey, because he realizes if he gets to this wish, he can wish for his 9 lives back and be the man he was before. Racing against Goldilocks and the Three Bears, he also comes into contact with Kitty Softpaws, voiced by Selma Hayek from the 2011 Puss in Boots, as well as essentially the true villain of this thing, Big Jack Horner, who is the old version of Little Jack Horner. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay, but you've definitely heard the nursery rhyme. Luckily, he does it, so you go, okay, I know who you're talking about. I think I know what you're referencing. It's an obscure one for me, but I don't know. I think if I struggle, kids are definitely going to go, I don't know who that is. Anyway, he's voiced by John Mulaney, so I don't care that much. And then it's a race. It's a race against all these competing factors to get to this magical wishing star and have their wishes granted. And each wish is a reflection on who these characters are, their personalities, their driving traits. 90% of them have more going on behind them than just sinister evil intentions, except for our good mate Big Jack Horner, eventually resulting in a big old final confrontation involving this wishing star. Well, this movie is perfect in every sense, whether it's the characters, whether it's the animation, whether it's the themes, or whether it's the story itself. It does not miss a beat. I went into this movie expecting that there might be certain bits that I might go, okay, yep, that looks pretty good. Oh yeah, I can sort of feel the emotion they're trying to get here. But I was hooked on this movie, on this plot, on what was happening every single minute of it. And that is impressive when you know that going to this movie, I was surrounded by kids that could not sit still, that were running around at the front of the movie theater, that their parents decided, don't need to control them, that's fine. Nobody else is watching this movie, really. I can't really complain because it's an unofficial but official family fun day, so I was the one who probably didn't belong, but still, there you go. The fact that I could still enjoy this movie as much as I could with all that going around me speaks volumes to it. The characters are great, and it's shocking how fully developed and not one-dimensional they are. Antonio Banderas is Puss in Boots. It's like he never missed a beat when he's come back to this role after being away for so long. What's crazy about Puss and his journey here is that the people behind it, they somehow managed to target everybody who's going to see this movie. If you're a kid going to see this movie, it's just going to be, it's Puss in Boots, he's funny, he's got his sword, oh no, he fell down, that's funny. If you're a parent, you're going to be like, oh, okay, this is pretty interesting. There's some heavy themes going on here. But if you're those people that were kids when Shrek was coming out and were basically leaving your teenage years when Puss in Boots came out, you will appreciate just how dark the movie can be and how heavy the themes are. This isn't a Puss is vain and greedy and just needs to learn the value of friendship or whatever. This is Puss in Boots staring his mortality in directly at it. He's coming from a place where for so long he seemed completely invincible because of his 9 lives. There's nothing the world can do to him. He can do whatever he wants. And now after so long, he's finally going, there is an end to this path that I'm on. There will be one day where I will die. And that's scary. And I think for people like me who are crossing 30 at this point, you do start to go, okay, yeah, all right. So that wonderful thing everyone talked about called the 20s, where it's just, you can do whatever you want and it doesn't matter because your whole life's ahead of you. Once you cross 30, you start to go, okay, no, I'm not a young adult now. I'm moving on. I'm headed in the right direction, but I will die. You know, most of us probably have kids at this point. Where they've bought their houses. They've risen up in their job levels. They are becoming the people that they looked up to as children, or at least people that you thought you'd never achieve in your wildest dreams. So that movie goes, yeah, relate to Puss in Boots because this is you right now. This is you. I saw a review that declared that Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, is the Logan of the Shrek franchise, and I thought that was stupid. But I cannot agree with it more. Not also just in terms of how good the movie is, but also the themes it addresses and the seriousness of the situation that both Puss and Logan, if you're watching Logan, endure. So it's fantastic stuff. So great move right off the bat. You've got a really strong protagonist. But all the other characters around him are also great. In a movie where you would expect, okay, so you have Puss, you have Kitty Softpaws, his romantic foil, and you have the little dog who's the little sidekick. You have all these asshole characters who will want the wish for their own nefarious purposes. But only old mate Jack Horner is like that. His wish is, of course, I want to be ultimate, all-powerful, take over the world sort of thing. Which, even in itself, yes, it's the generic bad guy stuff, but it makes you reconsider the nursery rhyme that Big Jack Horner or Little Jack Horner comes from, which I'd never really thought about, but it makes you think, is the nursery rhyme about a kid just eating a pie because he's happy? Or is it a nursery rhyme about a kid that's the greediest little shit in the world and won't share his pie with anybody else? I don't know, because I don't know that much about the nursery rhyme, but that's underlying stuff that's in here for a nursery rhyme character that I guarantee you no one has thought about in 20 or 30 years. But the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Goldilocks is voiced by Florence Pugh, which is a great start in itself. But they're not like Jack and Jill in the old Puss in Boots. They're not hits, those fairy tale characters, but evil. They're not evil. They have their little family dynamic. This is the world where the bears have adopted Goldilocks, so she's one of their family. But you can tell that Goldilocks, while in love with the bears, and the bears definitely are in love with her, she's definitely wishes to know what her life was like before them. She was a little orphan girl, so she has no idea where she came from or who her real parents are. So that driving force is the wishes for her to, to find that old family. Not realizing, of course, that the true family that she's always looked for has always been around her that whole time. So while they are in the way for Puss to achieve his goals, their motivations, their drives, their relationship with each other is portrayed in such a way that you value their journey and you want them to succeed in what they're doing, in stark contrast of also wanting Puss in Boots to succeed. That's some solid character development there for characters that I'd only seen in a throwaway line from a trailer with Goldilocks saying, I'm going to make the world just right. It's like, okay, Goldilocks is a madman in this movie. No, Goldilocks is a well-developed character. The bears all have their own distinct personalities, not subjected to just, the bear's always angry because his stuff is hot, and the mother's always meek because her stuff is so cold. The stuff you would expect. They're well-rounded individuals. The hot, cold, just right is used perfectly in terms of jokes or for serious character moments, rather than just stereotypical defining of characters. As I said at the start, the animation is absolutely breathtaking. It's incredible. I read afterwards, because I looked at this compared to the previous Puss in Boots, and the computer-generated animated stuff is still there. But there's a certain vibrance and poppiness to this film that's different from any other Shrek or Puss in Boots that came before. And I looked it up, and apparently the way the animation has been done has been to resemble more of a paint style, because these are fairy tale characters. But it makes everything look so much more beautiful and vibrant and everything like that, depending on what situation is going on. And it really makes use of animation color to depict mood, tense situations, final confrontations. It just looks beautiful. And as I said, that unique animated style that Spider-Verse has originated, that everybody wants to do, where Puss is engaged in action sequences, meaning it's hard to describe. It's choppy, but it's also pinpoint. You can see the lines are moving along Puss in Boots as he's running. It's kind of like a stop motion sort of thing. It's hard exactly to describe it, but seeing the animation switch to that sort of perspective heightens the situation, but also is incredibly fun to watch. I don't want this to become the new 3D situation, like when Avatar did 3D, and then everybody just did 3D for the sake of it. You want to do this type of animation if it's going to be part of the story you're telling and complement what's going on. And Puss in Boots is an example of doing that to the advantage of the movie. And finally, as I said, the story is heavy. There is blood in this movie. Puss has blood. dripping from his nose. The little dog has blood in his ear at some point. Like, there is a real sense of potential. As I said, the whole themes are mortality. So when the hits are given, when people are in danger, it feels like, yeah, people could fucking die in this Puss in Boots movie of all things. I haven't talked too much about the wolf bounty hunter that's coming after him, because I think to talk about him in any way ruins the impact of his character and his relationship with Puss and his eventual final confrontation with him. But what he represents in relation to Puss in Boots' 9 lives and all of that is very heavy. It's a lot to take in. I think for a lot of kids, a lot of things in this movie are probably going to go over their heads. They're not going to get a lot of the things that are being hinted at. But that's okay, because that is another example of this movie knowing exactly who its target audience is and creating a movie that everybody can appreciate. As I said, a kid will just like this because it's a fun animated movie with Puss in Boots. But if you're someone who grew up with Puss in Boots, or if you're even a parent who's just taking their kids to the movies because you want something to do with them, you are going to find yourself taken aback by what you're watching, and then you'll be invested in what's going on. I'm 100% satisfied with how everything played out. I wouldn't say a lot of the character stuff that people go on. If you've seen movies before, you might be able to guess particularly how things will end up for everybody and what's going on once you realize what development each character's emotional arc is going on. But that thing with Puss in Boots and the wolf bounty hunter, completely unique to anything I've ever seen before, at least in a DreamWorks animated movie, but certainly in any animated film that I've seen in a while. And I really enjoyed seeing how that played out on screen. Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. So shockingly, I cannot believe this, I give it a 9 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. And it's not like the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, where I said it was really, really good. But to be fair, it didn't have a lot of competition that year. There has been some good movies this year, whether it's Wakanda Forever or Glass Onion or Prey or Bullet Train or Top Gun Maverick or The Batman or The Northman. There's been some good stuff, but Puss in Boots: The Last Wish trumps nearly all of them, and really, it's not something where it's like, oh, okay, that's nostalgia or just being silly for the sake of silly. It is a genuine, really good movie that everyone can appreciate, and I highly recommend everyone listening to this, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, make some time to go and see this at the theaters if you can. As I said, it's supposed to come out on Boxing Day, so I don't think it's readily available to everybody just yet. There might be some advanced screenings here or there, I'm not sure. But whether you're looking for a movie to take your kids to see, whether you've been a fan of Puss in Boots and the Shrek franchise for whatever, whether you appreciate good animated movies, or whether you're just looking for a good movie in general, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish will cover all those boxes. It's shocking, I know, but it's true. There you are. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. I'm really happy that I got to talk really positively about Puss in Boots because I didn't expect it. Though, as I'm sure you're all waiting, this isn't the review you probably wanted this week just yet. On Thursday, I will be providing for you my review of the long-awaited Avatar sequel, Avatar: The Way of Water. Look, I'm going to say right off the bat here, I don't know how I will feel about it, but I will be honest. I fully expect that I'll probably appreciate the film. I don't know if I'll love it. I'll probably like it. But I also hate James Cameron. I hate his personality and I hate his attitude. So I kind of want to hate the movie as a result, and I kind of want it to fail. I don't expect it will, but it also has some pretty big goals. I read somewhere it has to make over $2 billion to make profit. And in a post-pandemic box office movie world, I don't know how that's possible. But whether I hate it, whether I love it, whether I just think it's okay, whatever my opinions will be, you'll get them on Thursday. So be sure to tune in for that. But until then, again, thank you for listening. And check out Puss in Boots: The Last Wish because it is delightful. Until Thursday, I love and appreciate you. As always, thank you for listening to me. And I'll catch you on the next Spliced In Later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.